Have there been things that have surprised you in the last, since we saw you a couple weeks ago? I mean, in camp.
No major surprises. I think things have followed suit pretty well. I mean, we've had a couple kids that have performed pretty well, maybe a little better than
Can you
they had been.
Who was
Yeah.
that?
Joe Brzezinski would be one. Joe's had a nice spring, he's done a good job. Elliot Mueller, who the two of them are competing for the job, so that's good. You know, those two come to mind right away, and I'm sure there's others, but the others would be more subtle surprises. But those two have done a pretty good job of battling each other for that spot.
One of your major uncertainties is tight end. How has Brandon Moore looked there this
Brennan Moore's playing right now better than he's played since he's been here. He is, and he's still got a little ways to go. But when he is technically sound, takes the right steps, and comes off the ball, you know, with a little bit of an attitude, he's a pretty good player. Brandon's got some talent. He does. He's just his consistency of play was a little erratic, but in terms of understanding what we do now, I don't think there's any issues there. He's a smart kid. And now that he understands it, the paralysis through analysis should be gone, and pretty much is. So he's as aggressive as I've seen him, and has demonstrated a certain degree of consistency that's shown improvement. You know,
What about behind him? I mean,
Ricardo Miller and Mike Kwiatkowski. You know, Ricardo really is kind of more of a H-backer, we call the U position. Although those guys still practice playing on the line of scrimmage. But Ricardo's a very athletic kid, runs better than any of our tight ends. Still has a ways to go as a blocker. And then Mike Kwiatkowski, who's, you know, if I had another surprise, he would probably be the next one that I'd mention. Mike's always been a very good receiver. His only issues were being his ability to play on the line of scrimmage against the bigger guys. But he's improved that. He's a strong kid. He has good power. But he's done a pretty nice job. So those three are probably in the fold as much as anyone.
if you guys had to start today, I mean, how comfortable would you feel with what you have there?
Well, I think we'd be fine. Yeah, I think we'd be okay. You know, we still need to improve. I'm not comfortable at any position right now, game ready wise, you know. But I think we could, and we will use our personnel accordingly. I mean, if we feel like that position isn't as strong as other positions, we'll find ways to play other positions. If that position gets up to speed and up to snuff, then we'll let them play a little bit more. It's up to them. You know, it really isn't up to us. It's up to them. We will totally evaluate and assess every player on the team. Playing time will be dictated by their productivity and nothing else.
Who's stepping up at the wide receiver position so far this spring?
The guy, kind of the same cast of characters, you know, save Gerald Robinson, who's really, you know, he's proven some toughness because he's been a little banged up, but he's not bad. He's done a very nice job. I've been very happy with Gerald, and then you know, Jeremy and Roy are doing a nice job. They know what to do. I mean, that's what's really nice about it. Now, not that position in every position, but they know what to do. We get very few missed assignments now, whereas last spring it was it was a carnival of missed assignments. It always is. It's not their fault. It's a new system that's going to happen, but we just don't get it anymore from those players that have played significantly. So, you know, Drew Dillio again is consistent, smart, tough. Jeremy Jackson Jeremy's been healthy, and because he's been healthy, his game has taken another step, and it's good to have him because he gives us some range at the position that we lost in junior. So I think those are the guys that have probably been the most prominent.
As far as the learning curve goes with the offensive linemen, looks like they're kind of young, getting ready for the fall. How's that learning curve? What's the adjustment been like for them up to this point in spring?
Which offensive lineman?
Just the line as a whole.
They're in the same situation, I think, as the receivers or anybody else. They've got a much better feel for what to do. Mm-hmm. You know, I tell you what's a significant advantage, and it's an advantage that you gain, and that's playing a bowl game. Is when you play in a bowl game, in particular a bowl game that's, in January, you get extra practices, and that helps everybody, but not the least of which is the offensive linemen, particularly the kids that aren't playing much, because you don't want to beat up the kids that are. So that bowl practice was invaluable to some of those young players.
Do you think that's why players like Brzezinski and Mueller have kind of
You bet.
stepped in the spring? That
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Darryl had a chance to work with those kids. See, the issues you have during the season are is you're preparing X amount of players, which generally is what, about, I don't know, depending different years it's different, but usually around 18 guys, between 17 and 18 guys, and the rest of them goes to scout team, right? Well, other than individual drills, you just don't get a lot of, practical application of the offense. Whereas when you get into bowl practices, you've got enough time now to go back and look at those kids run your offense, not run an offense off cards. So those reps running our offense for those kids are very valuable. It's almost like having a second spring football.
As far as offensive line, though, you've always focused on chemistry and that
Big
being
time.
key. Are you feeling like that's
Yeah, it's starting to come. A lot of that now, you have to understand, is dictated by the center's ability to be confident in his position. Ricky is is a work in progress still, but as Ricky becomes more and more comfortable in there, it has an infectious effect on the rest of the players. They all kind of take his lead a little bit. He like I told you before, he kind of quarterbacks the offensive line, and if he's on the same page with everybody, if everybody else is on the same page with him, I guess it's probably better put that way, is that chemistry tends to take.
How's Fitz looked? I mean, I know you feel he's your guy, but how has he?
He's been
dealt with
good,
it?
yeah, really good, really good. I mean, and we're trying to be careful with him, because he's kind of proven himself. Not that we're ever never going to back. The guy's always going to work. We're never going to give him an easy way out. But by the same token, when we go live and such, he's going to carry the ball, so he keeps well oiled. But we're not going to run him into the ground and get him banged up. So, but he's had an outstanding spring. I mean,
What area specifically?
well,
is
running the
he-
football, his blocking has improved, his receiving, every area. The more I think about it, darn near every area. He's become more complete, and that was our goal coming in. Yeah, still not a finished product, no, and I don't think any of them are, but he's a kid. As a coach, you're always looking for a group of kids that you have complete confidence in their ability to do what you want them to do in a game. And I tell them, I said, if we don't, we're not going to put you in a game. So, but he's about reached that point.
With his blocking and receiving, those were maybe the two things that he struggled with the most. How much better is he? I mean, is it
Well, his
market or
biggest
is-
issue, you talk about Fitz now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fitz's biggest issue, and I said it before, is his vision a year ago, but that's gone away. I've seen no signs of that being around anymore. That's just running the ball and seeing the holes and knowing where your help's coming from. But that's really it. He had to improve his protection, no issues with toughness, just understanding how to position yourself so you can get good leverage to throw the block. He's done that. We're throwing him more balls than we have. And he seems like he's improved that. So he's a prideful kid, and football's important to him. So those type of kids tend to get better, especially if they got a lot of skill.
Rawls looks like he's getting quite a few carries. What have you seen from him this spring?
Thomas is a different kind of back in that he's more of a power back. He brings a load now because he's a thick, strong, solid player with good speed, and he's going to generally fall forward when he hits you, and there's going to be some impact when he hits you. Whoever's trying to tackle him, particularly in the open field, is going to feel him. But he's got some of the same issues that Fitz had last spring, but they're starting to go away. I noticed too. He's starting to see the line of scrimmage better and make better cuts and not run into bodies. Because Thomas, when he coming out of high school, a lot of guys do this. The power backs just tend to want to run straight ahead and run over guys because they can't tackle them, and the scat backs tend to want to juke everybody and never get up the field. Okay, Well, the perfect back is a back that's somewhere in between. They understand when to use their power and then when to use their stop and go ability. And Thomas has now got to a point now where he's not simply trying to run over everybody every time he gets the ball.
Do you think him watching Fitz go through that transformation last year helped aid that development?
I don't think it hurt him any. You know, I think those are good mental reps, I call them, where you can
Right.
steal a repetition from a guy who may not have done it right, and then, you know, not have to blow it yourself. You know, to have the coach critique it. But there's nothing like doing. I'm a big believer in body learning. I learned this years ago. That's my own term. I never heard anybody say that, but body learning means physically going through the trial and error part of it, so that you can fix the mistake, you know, yourself. Mental reps are great. You got to take them, but the body learning is even more important. I talk in coaching about really two things I think that are important for players, and one is body learning, and that's repetitions and such, and functional intelligence. And functional intelligence simply is the ability to transfer what you learn in the film room or on the chalkboard or in the walkthroughs and practically apply it to the game. You know, the progression, of course, being practice first and such. But it's really irrelevant what your IQ is when you take a test, if in fact when it comes time to execute the responsibility that you're not able to do it. So those two things, being able to body learn it and then being functionally intelligent enough to execute it when it's time to execute it.
And how have you seen Thomas Rawls' functional intelligence?
Good, because he understands better. He is still going through a few growing pains with our protection, but it's not because he doesn't know it. He needs to body learn it more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I've kind of encapsulated my coaching philosophy here in about the last 10 minutes, but that's
What's your philosophy on the spring game? What are you looking for from your offense?
same thing as everything else, you know, evaluation and system. That's usually what spring's all about. See if we can find another playmaker, see if somebody, you know, jumps to the forefront when everybody's watching. Because that's when it's really the most critical, is when the lights go on. You know, sometimes guys in practice are better than they are when it really counts. You know, Freddie J has a name for him. I think they call him as State Street players or Main Street players, you know. We're going to find out who the Main Street players are, or at least hope to. I'm sorry.
You said you weren't comfortable in terms of readiness with players yet, any position. Does that go for Denard and also?
Oh, everybody's
what Devin is at this
yeah,
point?
everybody's a work in progress still, but it's so much further along, Angelique, than it was. You know, we're not hunt and peck as much. We're more, okay, we know it. Let's refine it now, okay, and then try and eliminate the more of the smaller errors, where before we were eliminating a lot of the bigger errors. You know, so Denard's in that same situation, as is Devin, as is Russ. Russ Bellamy, he's another kid who he has very good functional intelligence, he's taken a step with our offense.
With Devin, how much have you been, now that spring's almost over, how much have you experimented?
Oh, a little bit here and there, yeah, a little bit, but we're not. It's really not. Spring is part of this experimentation, but it's not really the emphasis. You know, what we do as coaches is we want to reinstall our offense, refine our offense, and then, because we're constantly evolving, you know, and trying to professionally enrich ourselves, is take little bits and pieces that we learn in the off season and apply them during spring football and test them a little bit. But that's a small percentage of what we're doing. You know, that's just basically testing schemes. We're much more interested in seeing to it that these kids are developed within our system and that we can evaluate their skill levels, so when it comes time to play, we can decide who deserves to.
Do you feel like you found a role for Devin?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and right now it's quarterback. He's going to be number 2 quarterback, and then see how things go. You know, 'cause we haven't changed Devin's with our regard to Devin's our approach with Devin hasn't really changed too much. We got to find a way to get him on the field because he's got skills that go over and above your average quarterback.
Is he far and above the number 2 behind in front of Bellamy?
No,
Or is that...
no one is far and above anybody right now that I can think of. But because Russ Bellamy has made he's got people's attention. Russ is another kid's very athletic, can throw the ball, and like I said, good functional intelligence. He was a kid that needed more body learning, more reps, but he's had a pretty good spring too. You know, he probably doesn't get mentioned as much as he should, but he's a good little player.
You said spring is the time for evaluating. Has you had the opportunity to kind of identify any spots, maybe not where you're like, we're in trouble, but maybe where you think you'll get some help in the fall with guys that are going to be coming in that you can't, that, you know, that's not going to happen until after the spring is over?
Yeah, well, first of all, the guys coming in, we have no idea who's going to help us. Neither does anybody in the entire country, regardless of what you told them in recruiting. Okay? No one does, because sometimes guys come in simply, they're just not as good or as you want, or they're not ready. Be the one of the two. So I have no idea what's going to happen with that. We recruit every kid assuming that they're going to play for us, and then we'll just kind of go from there. But really, this isn't about that. This is about trying to get a team ready in 15 days and find out do they know your system and who has got the best chance to play at that point. Now, when you get into a week into fall, and you've seen everybody, you go through the whole thing all over again. Install your system, evaluate who you got, and see who's got the best chance to play at that point. You got a whole new batch of players.
With that in mind, I know you don't like tailback by committee, but could you see yourself going into the fall doing kind of what you did last season? And
No.
You think so?
I see no reason for that. Yeah, I see no reason.
So
Not at this
Fitz is
point.
the clear cut.
Fitz is our tailback. I mean, if he isn't, I'm not very smart. But you know, I say that, and then as soon as somebody sees another guy together, I thought you said you were going to put no. We're going to spell him occasionally. Okay, he's going to be there every play, but he is going to. You know, our last 5 or 6 games, you saw really what our approach wanted to be, and that's pretty much what it's going to stay until it isn't productive. You know.